Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing 2 booked theme shadow box card featuring some brand new products from the Essentials by Ellen line. This is a part of their June 2021 release, and it's full of some fabulous products, and I'm just using a few of those here today. I'm going to be featuring the shadow box die, which has a couple of dies in it that you can use to press some designs into your cardstock, like this floral and the book page design. I'm going to show you how to use those today. And I'm also using the Pressing Thoughts stamp and coordinating die set. Now, I love these florals in this stamp set, and I've done some really loose Copic coloring on these images today to show you just how beautiful and easy they are to color. Now I'm starting out with the main piece of the shadow box die, and I'm die cutting it from some navy cardstock as well as some ivory cardstock. I'm not doing anything special on the die cutting here, just running it through with my normal die cutting sandwich through my Gemini Junior. And you could use this in your Spellbinders Platinum 6 or your Sizzix Big Shot, whatever die cut machine you have. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to cut a few of these pieces because I am making 2 different types of shadow boxes today. I am making a shadow box card, which is how this was originally intended to be used. And I'm also making a standalone shadow box. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here in just a moment. Now this die not only cuts the piece that you need, but it also presses the score lines or the fold lines into the paper for you. So it's really easy to figure out. And once I have these cut, I'm going to show you kind of a mock-up of what I'm going to be creating today. I kind of played with this ahead of time to make sure I knew exactly what I was doing. And here is a look at the standalone shadow box. Now this is not completely put together, but I kind of wanted to show you where we're heading with this, and it's going to look like a book in the end. So it's going to have some foiled book pages on the edge. And then the second project is very easy, how the die was intended, and that's a shadow box card. And there is a rectangle die in this set that will cut a perfect window out of this shadow box piece. So each of these main pieces has a double flap side and a single flap side, as well as the score lines that you'll need. Now on this double flap side, I am going to go ahead and use this book page kind of pressing die to press this design into the paper. Now you can use this with or without foiling. It is designed to press a design into your paper, not cut your paper. And it's just designed to give the edge of the shadow box the look of book pages. And I thought it would be really cool to foil this. So I'm holding this die in place on the flap on the double flap side. So it's the inner full flap. And this will kind of make sense here in just a moment. The outer flap is designed for the adhesive. The inner flap is going to be that raised edge, and that's where you want your book page design. I've slid a piece of foil underneath that die, and I'm placing that with the die side towards the hot foiling platform of my Gemini foil press. Now I have my foil press platform set to medium heat, and I did add an extra piece of computer paper between my cardstock and the foil press shim that you use to run this through the die cut machine. I set my timer to 15 seconds and ran that through my Gemini Junior. And you're going to see when I remove this, I am going to have that book page edge design pressed into the flap of the shadow box die cut piece. Now you can see this has pressed into the cardstock. Don't worry, not all that foil is going to stay behind. When I pull off the foil, you can see I have that really cool foiled edge book page design. It is so beautiful. I love this because it reminds me of the gold foiled edges on my Bible, and I think that's so cool. Now this floral frame that is in the die set can be used to kind of press a design into the paper as well. And I'm going to use it to press this floral pattern onto a navy card front. Now you're seeing me do this horizontally here. In my finished card project, I actually ran the frame the other way, more vertically, but I used the same process. So once again, I'm putting the foil between the die and the cardstock. I'm adding a piece of computer paper to my sandwich here and adding the shim on top. My foil press is set to medium heat and I set the timer to 15 seconds. And once that timer runs out, I'm going to remove the platform from my foil press and run it through my Gemini Junior. Now this is going to leave me with that floral pattern foiled onto this dark navy cardstock, and it is absolutely beautiful on dark cardstock. Just check this out. When I remove the die, I have this really delicate foiled floral pattern. Say that 10 times fast. Foiled floral pattern on my card front. And I absolutely love it. So that's just a couple of ways that you can use these dies with this shadow box die set. Now, let's get to building our first shadow box, and that's going to be the standalone shadow box. It's a little more involved than the actual shadow box card. It takes a couple more steps, but it is not difficult at all. I'm taking the window or the rectangle piece from the shadow box die set and I'm die cutting it from the center of the shadow box base piece here. This is going to create a window on the front of my book that I'm creating. And as I mentioned before, these dies are going to create the fold lines for you, or the score lines for the fold lines. And I'm just going to fold along those lines and reinforce the fold with my bone folder. Now, this wasn't originally intended to create a standalone shadow box, and so I'm going to have to do a little alteration on these die cuts, but not much at all. I'm just folding along the score lines on this ivory piece where I press that book page design onto the edge there, and just getting everything ready. Now on this piece here, I'm cutting off the single flap along the single flap side. So I'm left with the double flap side here, and that's folded over. And I've cut off that single flap along the right-hand edge. And on this ivory piece, I am going to trim just about 1/4 of an inch off of the flap on the double flap side. So I'm just shortening up that flap there. Now I have a second piece of navy cardstock that I've cut from the shadow box base piece, and I've trimmed off both edges with the flaps. So I just have the base piece here. So there are no flaps on it. You could absolutely cut this out with a trimmer as well. I just didn't want to have to do the measuring. So I die cut it from navy cardstock and trimmed off all the flaps along the score lines. Now I'm just adding adhesive to the outer flap on the double flap side and placing that book back onto that flap. So that's kind of creating my book there. Then I can take this ivory piece and kind of slide it up with my flaps facing up, and you can see that's going to give me my book shape. Now I decided I didn't really need the single flap on this ivory piece, so I went ahead and trimmed that off, and I shaved just a hair more off than the flap itself, just to allow this to kind of inset into the book a little bit. You know how a book cover kind of goes beyond the edges of the book pages, especially in a hardcover book? I kind of trimmed a little excess off to create that same look here. And you can see when I adhere that in there, you're going to have that page design pressed into the edge of this, and it's going to look like a little book. It is absolutely adorable. Now, before I adhere it inside of my book cover, I am going to trim down a piece of ivory cardstock that's just smaller than the base of that ivory piece, and I'm going to stamp it with this lined by hand stamp. I've inked it up with some Concord and 9th Ballet slipper ink, and I'm just laying that face down onto the stamp and covering it with a piece of scratch paper and then just pressing all over that to transfer the design to the cardstock. Now this was my idea for just adding kind of the illusion of words inside of this book. If you had some sort of text stamp, that would work really well also, but I just kind of am adding different layers of stamping and die cuts to the inside of this book to just dress it up a little bit. Now on the back side of this stamped piece of ivory cardstock, I'm adding adhesive to 3 sides. So on the top portion, what will be the top of this piece of ivory cardstock, I'm leaving that open because I am going to use a rectangle and kind of slide it in as a slide out function for this. So you can see I have a rectangle here that was die cut using the rectangle from the shadow box die set, and I can slide that in behind the stamped piece, and that's going to create a little place where I can slide it in and out and create my handwritten note. Now it's kind of hard to get out, but I'm going to show you how to remedy that with a little bookmark here in just a moment. So now that I have this inset piece adhered to this base piece, I'm going to go ahead and flip this over, and on the back side of this ivory piece, I'm going to add adhesive all over the back of this. And then along that outer flap, I'm also adding a little bit of strong adhesive. Now you could use liquid adhesive for this as well, but that does take a little bit of time to set up. Now I'm making sure that I place this into my book cover with that note that I've kind of slid in the top facing towards the top portion. So my book will open the correct direction, at least here in the United States. I know that other people read from, what is it, right to left? We read left to right, so we open that way. Anyway, moving on. Once I have that placed into my book cover, I'm going to remove the backer on the adhesive that's on this ivory flap and just close my book cover on this. And this is going to create my finished little book here. So once I get it lined up, I'll press it into place, and I have my book cover with the little foiled book pages there inset in it. And it's a standalone shadow box, and it will have this slide out note feature in the end. Now, before we get to the bookmark portion, I'm going to go ahead and create some additional pieces to place inside of this book and decorate it. And this Pressing Thoughts floral set from the Essentials by Ellen line was kind of designed with this pressed flowers inside of a book theme in mind. So I've gone ahead and die cut this Pressing Florals die from some plain white cardstock, and I've used the negative space inside of my mini Misty to help me position the die cut where I need it. And I'm going to just stamp right on this with some Gina Obsidian Amalgam ink. And I'm using my Stamper's Secret tool to get some even pressure all over the surface of the stamp. And you can see it's perfectly stamped onto the die cut. Now I wanted to create a couple more foiled pieces for my book. And so I've die cut them from some plain white cardstock. And I am using the metal shim that comes with the Gemini foil press. I've heated that up on medium heat and added my foil with the pretty side towards that metal plate. And then I'm going to add my plain white die cuts face down on top of that foil. I'm going to cover it with a piece of heavyweight cardstock and add my shim. And I'm going to set my timer for 15 seconds. Now that metal plate is going to act like my foil plate, but it's flat. So all it's going to do is press this foil onto this plain white cardstock. And once I run this through my die cut machine, you can see that that foil is pressed onto the plain white cardstock. When I remove the excess foil, I have a perfectly foiled hexagon and this little book plate that I cut with one of the dies from the Shadow Box die set. Now I've also die cut the Mod Floral die from some plain white cardstock, and I'm adding some liquid adhesive to the back, and I'm going to place that onto or inside of my book through this window. This is just another layer for decoration. And through the magic of television, I've gone ahead and Copic colored my floral piece there using some really loose Copic coloring. And I'm going to use this Thanks sentiment from the Pressing Thoughts stamp set. And I'm going to stamp it using some navy ink onto some plain white cardstock. And then I'm going to fussy cut it out to create a sentiment for the inside of my book. And I'm going to add it to this grouping with that foiled gold hexagon and this little floral grouping here. And I will take this entire little vignette, for lack of a better word, and I'm going to adhere it inside of my book. So this is going to have a little dimension to it because I did add some foam adhesive behind it. And I'll just place it inside of the book. And so this is going to be set back from the cover of the book, but it's not going to be all the way to the back. So there's a lot of varying dimension here with that dimensional shadow box card and kind of the dimension inside of the shadow box. So here's a look at the book so far. I've got the pressed foil pages, a little foiled book plate on the outer edge. And now I've taken that same book plate die from the Shadow Box die set, and I've die cut it from some blush cardstock, and I'm using some liquid adhesive to adhere it to the left edge of this ivory rectangle. This is the little note card piece that I have slid inside behind that stamped piece to create a slide out note card feature. And I used 2 pieces of this blush cardstock to really reinforce it. And I added some twine to that to make it look like a little bookmark coming out of the top of my book. And that creates my Standalone Book Shadow Box here. Now this is really fun to do, and I think it's a different kind of a card to create. I love the pressed detail of those foiled pages, and I think it's really fun to have this interactive portion with the pull-out note card. Now we did the hardest project first. The second project is really easy, and it's how this shadow box die was originally intended to use. I have an A2 navy card base here. It's already folded and decorated, and I've added adhesive to the outer flaps of this ivory piece. Now I've stamped it with a little bit of design here, and I've added the foiled book pages to the edge just like I did before. But I'm just gonna use that adhesive that I have on the flaps, and I'm gonna tuck the single edge flap side into the fold of my card. And this double edge, the outer flap, has the adhesive on it. I am going to fold it over. I'm going to remove the backer from the adhesive, and then I can just close my navy card base on this double flap side, and it's going to add this shadow box and this dimensional portion inside of my card. So now when you open up the card, it looks like a book inside. Now I've used the exact same floral stamp set and elements on the front of this card, but I wanted to show you that it's really easy to create a shadow box card as well. It doesn't have to be a shadow box standalone. This will fold down and fit perfectly in an A2 envelope, and it's really easy to create. And if you wanted to use the rectangle that's included in the die set, you could create a window inside of this shadow box card as well. So there you have it, 2 book-themed cards featuring the brand new shadow box die from the Essentials by Ellen June 2021 release. This was so much fun to play with and kind of use it in an unexpected way. I love this pull-out portion on this little book. And I love that you can kind of create different themes. If you want to skip the book pages on the edge of this shadow box, you absolutely could, and you could create a project for any occasion. And I love the flexibility that creating the window in the shadow box portion kind of gives you. So you could create a window inside of the card, or you can create this really fun standalone book shadow box. So many different variations that you can kind of play with here within this die set. Now, these are just a couple of the new products available in the Essentials by Ellen line available today for the June 2021 Essentials by Ellen release. And we are celebrating this release with a hop over on Instagram. So if you want to hop on over to my Instagram, I will be sure to link that below. Over there, you will have lots of inspiration featuring all the new products from the Essentials by Ellen line and a chance to win one of 3 $25 ellenhutson.com gift certificates. So be sure you head on over there. I will have that linked below. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. That will be linked in the description as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. Leave me a comment below and let me know which of these 2 projects is your favorite. And if you love this video, I would love it if you would share it with a friend as well. Thanks again for spending time with me today. I am so glad you're here. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.